the greatest compliment you can give an album is to say that this album is a contender to be known as the greatest of all time. And only a handful of albums spread across decades can legitimately claim to that throne. One such album we celebrate tonight. Tonight, I'm going to make the case for the album Ride the Lightning as the greatest heavy metal album of all time. We're going to go in depth with Metallica's masterpiece next. Welcome, metal enthusiasts, to another episode of the Metal Dude Abides. Tonight, we are going to take a look at the best hard rock albums of 1984. We're going to take a look at the best heavy metal albums of 1984. But before we get to that, we may be possibly looking at the best heavy metal album of all time. We are going to put a spotlight on the album Ride the Lightning by Metallica. Now, when you start talking about the greatest heavy metal album of all time, we are talking heavy metal's now been an art form for well over 50 years. And I'm sure every generation of heavy metal fans can lay claim to an album from their generation as being the absolute best. Now, my favorite generation of music, heavy metal music, comes from a period of time between 1980 and 1984. To me, this is by far the best 5 years in the history of heavy metal. And in this era, there's 2 or 3 albums that were so good that I would personally consider them to be the greatest heavy metal albums of all time. It starts right away in 1980. Black Sabbath puts out their opus, Heaven and Hell. Now, this is a hot take, and we can talk a little bit about the generational aspect of this, in that many people consider the very early Black Sabbath of the 70s to be the best era of Black Sabbath. Personally, I believe that the era of the early 80s is the best era of Black Sabbath music, and I think Heaven Hell, even though it doesn't have Ozzy as the lead singer, it has Ronnie James Dio, is absolutely the best album in the history of Black Sabbath, and we all know that Black Sabbath is probably the most legendary band in the history of heavy metal. Fast forward a couple of years to 1982, and Iron Maiden puts out The Number of the Beast. This is their first album with Bruce Dickinson, and I consider this to be by far the greatest Iron Maiden album of all time. And we all know, again, in 2025, Iron Maiden is still a huge draw around the world, one of the biggest bands of all time. So when you start talking about the best Iron Maiden album, it has to be in the running. That very same year, legendary band Judas Priest put out what many people consider their best album, Screaming for Vengeance. Think about this for a minute. I think the ultimate throwdown, Number of the Beast and Screaming for Vengeance, battling out to be who's the best album of 1982, and that winner could not only win 1982, but could win the award for the best of all time. That's how good both of those albums are. Once again, we're going to skip forward a couple of years to 1984 and the album we want to talk about today. Oh boy, Metallica's Ride the Lightning. I think it is an undeniable fact that right now, in the year of our Lord 2025, Metallica is the biggest heavy metal band on planet Earth. They were just doing their summer tour. They were just in Denver, Colorado, and they sold out Mile High Stadium, not once, but 2 straight nights. There's not too many bands in the world today that can sell out a football arena 2 straight days. I think also, while this might not be as much of an undisputable fact, I think it's a pretty strong opinion that if you ask the vast majority of Metallica fans, they would say that the best era of Metallica was the early days of the 80s and early 90s. I don't think you're going to find a lot of people that would say, oh, I like one of their newer albums is the best. most people are going to go back to the classics. So, putting those two separate thoughts together, Metallica is the biggest band on planet Earth based on their excellent albums from over 40 years ago. That tells you just how great these albums are. And of those albums, I think Ride the Lightning might be the absolute best. So I'm going to lay my case for this being the greatest album of all time. We're going to go track by track and see if I can get you to agree. The opening track is a barn burner by the name of Fight Fire with Fire. It's kind of a great way to start off an album in that it kind of tricks you a little bit, in that it starts off with this beautiful acoustical guitar intro that really doesn't prepare you for what's about to happen. Because when Metallica puts their foot to the pedal, boy, they can absolutely blow your hair back, and they do so in this song. The double bass assault on this album from Lars Ulrich, if you're with us a couple of weeks ago, I think this is the best drumming song of the year 1984. Lars absolutely kills it. It also starts to establish the Metallica pattern back in the day of really starting off their albums with a barn burner. The first album, Hit the Lights, what a great intro. And of course, next album up, Master of Puppets, starts off with the fist to your face battery. So a great way to start an album. I'm a big fan of having fast, aggressive songs lead an album. Metallica does so right here with Fight Fire with Fire. The second song on this album really kind of takes Metallica to that next level of craftsmanship in their songs. If you go back to the Kill 'Em All album, you have just fast song after fast song, punch you in the face after punch you in the face. But this song takes it down just a notch and really tells a fascinating story and uses the instruments to tell that story. The song Ride the Lightning is about an innocent man being put in the electric chair and being put to death, and the fear that he has as that moment approaches. And I really think this is just so cool. If you listen to the beginning guitar riffs from Kirk Hammett on this, he plays the guitar in a way that it almost sounds like a cry for help. That is next level storytelling with instruments. This is a very underrated song, and again shows the progression of Metallica's songwriting abilities from one album to the next. If you have never really heard Ride the Lightning and kind of caught that opening guitar sound, give it a listen to. It is chilling. After the first two songs, you're already starting to sense that this is going to be a very special Metallica album. But this song it goes to a whole new level right here at song number 3. For Whom the Bell Tolls. We talk a lot about how much Cliff Burton meant to the metal world. What a phenomenal bass player he is. This song is a good example of that. The intro to this song, played on the bass, is amazing. For many years, I thought this was a guitar lead. I didn't even realize that it was Cliff on bass. When I realized that, it just put it into a whole new level of song. Just love this song to death. Now, when you start talking about greatest of all time territory, you have to have, not just great songs, not just a perfect album where all the songs are good. You have to have legendary songs. And here on Ride the Lightning, I'm going to go on record as saying I think this album has 3 of the greatest Metallica songs of all time. And because Metallica is one of the greatest bands of all time, 3 of the greatest heavy metal tracks of all time right here on this album. When you start looking at top 10 Metallica songs, you are in really high company. This song, I think, legitimately has 3 of the top 10 songs, and I think 3 of the not just in the top 10, but high in that top 10. For Whom the Bell Tolls is one of those songs. Take a look to the sky just before you die. It's the last time you will. And then those drums kick in. What an amazing song. I know several people who are diehard Metallica fans that say this is by far the greatest Metallica song of all time. And believe it or not, I'm not one of them. It's in their top 10 for sure. Any other album, you look at a song like For Whom the Bell Tolls, you'd say, well, that's the greatest song on the album. But Metallica actually has songs I think are even better. And we'll get to those in a second. The fourth song on this album, Fade to Black, is kind of the first ballad, if you will, from Metallica. And again, ballads get a bad name because a lot of bands were putting out some really cheesy, terrible ballads. When I look at great heavy metal ballads, this is the prototype. This is the blueprint. I think this is an absolute, and here's why. Because it's not sappy. It's slower, but it just evokes so much emotion. The guitar work on here is so melancholy. It really sets a heavy tone. Like you feel very emotional as you listen to this song. And it does deal with a very dark subject of suicide. And I do always want to point out to all my listeners, if you are in any way, shape, or form feeling suicidal, feeling alone, feeling like you're unloved, please, there is help out there. There are people that care. 988. Dial that and look to get some help. Don't let depression, don't let your sorrow overwhelm you in the moment. You have a lot to live for. You have people who love you. Hang in there. This song is very dark and can trigger those emotions, so please take care of yourself. And that's kind of what makes it such a great song. I mean, this song, again, has that melancholy feel. That sadness just drips through the guitar, and then it just leads into that big, crunchy, heavy riff. Lots of nice signature changes. I love the guitar work of Kirk Hammett. One of my favorite Kirk Hammett songs right here. And James Hetfield. I tell this story a lot, but after Kill 'Em All, James Hetfield was through. He didn't like the way he was singing. He thought maybe he was holding back the band. He wanted to just focus on guitar. They approached Armored Saint lead singer John Bush and said, hey, would you be our singer? John Bush decided to stick with Armored Saint. The rest is history. I am a huge mark for John Bush. I think he's one of the greatest vocalists in the history of heavy metal, and I am so glad that he was not the lead singer of Metallica, because James Hetfield, while he's not maybe the greatest singer that, by the book that ever lived, he is the perfect singer for Metallica. He's the perfect singer for this song. I love his vocals across this album, but in particular on this song. Once again, when you start looking at an album and you start talking about the greatest songs of all time, here, Fade to Black. If you take a poll in this household, Fade to Black is going to come out on top as the greatest Metallica song of all time. That is saying a lot. Back to back, For Whom the Bell Tolls and Fade to Black? Are you kidding me? You could easily make an argument for both of those songs being best Metallica song of all time, best heavy metal song of all time. That's how good those tracks are back to back. Whew, how do you follow that up? You have just written and performed two of the greatest heavy metal songs in its entire history. How do you follow that up? By punching your listener in the face one more time. One of the fastest, most aggressive, and one of my favorite deep cuts in the history of the Metallica catalog, Trapped Under Ice. Ooh, boy, do I love this song. And it is the song of nightmare stuff. When I was a little kid, they had a trilogy of movies called the Omen trilogy, right? It's basically the story of the devil coming, the Antichrist coming down to Earth. Um, in the first movie, he's a little kid. In the second movie, he's kind of becoming a teenager, and in the third movie, he's an adult, played by Sam Neill, by the way, who no matter what movie he's in, from Jurassic Park to Red October, it's always like, no, don't trust that guy. That's the devil. Anyway, talk about being typecast. But anyway, in the second Omen movie, he's going off to military school and whatnot. He's kind of discovering the fact that he is who he is, the Antichrist, and he's got a brother. And at one point, there's this. They're playing hockey outside, and he decides it's time to get rid of so and so, and so there's a horrific scene in the hockey where the kid falls through the pond and he's under the ice, and of course he doesn't make it, and it's all orchestrated by the Antichrist. Like, there's ways to die and there's ways not to die. Being trapped under a frozen bed, drowning to death, not the way to die. Ugh, just horrific stuff. Metallica, they, the thing about Metallica is every one of these songs has, a theme to it, and most of them are very dark, nightmarish stuff, but no more dark and nightmarish than this baby right here. A great song to kind of reset your palate, get you back on track. Trapped Under Ice, one of my favorite deep tracks from Metallica. Whenever I do a track by track analysis, I always tell you my favorite songs, but also with every album, even a great album, even a perfect album, I'll tell you my least favorite song of that album, and it comes right here with the song Escape. Ironically enough, this is also James Hetfield's least favorite song on this album, maybe in his entire career. Now, I get why James Hetfield hates this song. Apparently, it's only been played in concert when they were doing the entirety of this album, performing it. That's the only time they play it. Not a big favorite of the band's. And here's why. Very early on, while the audience hadn't caught on to Metallica yet, the critics had started following them, and the record label started realizing that they had something pretty special here. But again, the audience hadn't come around yet. That wouldn't come for a few more years. So the record label, doing what record labels do, say, why don't you try to, put something a little bit more standard together? Nice little song, nice little chorus, this sort of thing. More of a song in the standard format that we can play on the radio and produce as a single, whatnot. Kind of hard to lead with, something like Fade to Black, right? So Metallica was kind of forced to make this album in a more of a format for radio, if you will. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's very popish by any means, but it is more of kind of the standard song structures you see in songs, mainstream. But having said all that, this is still a very good song, and I actually like the chorus. I like the way they structure it. If Metallica had decided to go this direction, I think they would have found success as well, because most metal bands would give their eye teeth to write a song as great as this song right here. So, least favorite song? Sure. Hetfield hates it? Sure. But it is still a fantastic heavy metal song. Now, as we started this review, I revealed that there is not one, not two, but three of the greatest Metallica songs of all time. We've already talked about two. Let's talk about the third one. Oh boy, Creeping Death, Heavy Metal Moses. Here we go. I love this song. Of course, it is a heavy metal version of if you've seen the movie The Ten Commandments, the exodus of the Jews out of Egypt. This is an absolute banger of a song. If you're not familiar with the tale of Moses, Moses goes into to Pharaoh to say, "Let my people go." The Hebrew people were enslaved by the Egyptians at this point. Pharaoh refuses, and so God sends down these terrible curses upon the Egyptian people. The Nile turns to blood. There's fiery hail. There's all sorts of things. But the ultimate is that Moses goes one last time to the Pharaoh and says, "Hey, Pharaoh, don't 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 push this any farther. You need to let the people go." And Pharaoh threatens the Hebrews with killing their firstborn, and so that curse is then used against Pharaoh, and the creeping death is the angel of death that comes through the town, killing the firstborn. But because now the Hebrews know that it's coming, they are instructed to put lamb's blood on their door so that the hand of death passes over them. But the Egyptians, of course, not knowing what's about to hit them, do not do that and lose their firstborn sons and daughters to this terrible, terrible curse, including Pharaoh himself, who loses his heir to the throne. All of that, a really dark story told beautifully well by Metallica here. And not only is this one of the top 10 Metallica songs of all time, it may be their best live song. So let it be written, so let it be done. This song is fantastic. There's a part of the song that they do live where James Hetfield is just, "Die by my hand," and the crowd's just chanting, "Die, die, die." Great crowd participation, great dramatic moment in the song. Oh boy. Now I hope you're starting to see why this album has to be considered one of the greatest of all times. This, again, on any other album would probably be considered greatest song on the album. Any given year in heavy metal, this would be a contender for best heavy metal song of the year across the board. And here it is, trying to just get some oxygen because Fade to Black and For Whom the Bell Tolls is on the same album. 3 all-time classics, all 3 of them, easy top 10 hits. This is why this album is so beloved and why it has to be considered to be the greatest of all time. The album closes with an epic, long instrumental called The Call of Cthulhu. Once again, Man Crush Alert, Cliff Burton's bass on this song. Oh my goodness. As I was really wrestling with best bass performance of the year, ultimately For Whom the Bell Tolls wins out. But if someone said, "Wait a minute, The Call of Cthulhu, that's the one you got to pick," I wouldn't have too many complaints. Cliff Burton absolutely kills it. Now, one of the things I'll readily admit, I don't really like long instrumental songs unless they really do a lot of cool things. This is the case with this song, and I really find it interesting. About the time I start to go, okay, this song's about, done it for me. It's given all that it's going to give. Time to wrap it up. Metallica kicks in and puts a flourish at the end of it that is the perfect close to the perfect album. I love this album from start to finish. The Call of Cthulhu also, if you want an interesting trivia, the last Metallica song written and played that has Dave Mustaine in the writing credits. So there you go, a little bit of an interesting trivia there. This is a song that obviously they had been working on for a number of years. So there you have it. This album, one of the best Metallica albums of all time, features 3 of their greatest songs of all time, has a great opener, has a great close, has a terrifying deep track. Put it down in the comments below. What do you think? Is this the greatest album of all time? If I were to be asked right now, today, I would say yes, this is it. I've gone back and forth with many albums over the years, but at the moment, I do believe that Ride the Lightning is the greatest album ever written in the history of heavy metal. But we still have the awards to see what the best hard rock and heavy metal albums are in 1984. So let's go through the nominee list and list out the poor bands that had to run against this juggernaut for Album of the Year. Let's start with our 5 nominees for Hard Rock Album of the Year. After all, one of these bands actually has a chance to win. Our first nominee, Deep Purple, with their comeback album, Perfect Strangers. This is, of course, the big comeback from Deep Purple. They have been gone for almost a decade. They come roaring back with the Mark II lineup, meaning Ian Gillan on vocals, Richie Blackmore on guitars, Roger Glover on bass, Ian Paice on drums, John Lord on keyboards. And unlike a lot of bands that go away for like a decade plus, they come back. This is actually one of the best Deep Purple albums of all time. Our second nominee is a younger band, up-and-coming band, Dokken, with their album Tooth and Nail. This album has several great songs on it. Just Got Lucky, Into the Fire, Alone Again, beautiful ballad from Don Dokken as he's starting to become one of the greatest vocalists in the sport. Great guitar work all over the place from George Lynch. This is my favorite Dokken album. Again, our second nominee, Tooth and Nail. Our third nominee, the Scorpions, come in with Love at First Sting. This is probably, in my humble opinion, the last great Scorpions album before they kind of move off in a commercial direction. This album has a little bit of an overrated song, but their trademark song, Rock You Like a Hurricane, again, another beautiful ballad. Ballads are really the story this year. With They Have Still Loving You. My favorite song on this album, Coming Home, and we talked a couple of episodes back about the inspiring story behind the song The Same Thrill, and a host of others. A really good album here by the Scorpions, our third nominee. Our fourth nominee, Van Halen, with their last album with David Lee Roth, 1984. Okay, I didn't care for the song Jump, but you know, this album does have some real bangers in it, including two of my all-time favorites, Hot for Teacher and Panama. David Lee Roth's final swan song with Van Halen is a good one. This was one of the biggest party albums of the year. Everybody loved this album. It's our fourth nominee, Van Halen, 1984. And finally, our fifth and final nominee, Whitesnake, with their album Slide It In. Now, this is a little bit of the golden era of Whitesnake beginning, because this is the beginning of, if you're a fan of this channel, you know what's coming. This is the John Sykes era of Whitesnake. It is the best era of Whitesnake. They're going to have a couple of albums that are going to be in the all-timer category. It's hard to pick my favorite song on this album because two of them, Slow and Easy and Love Ain't No Stranger, are just two epics, but the title track's also good here. Really the beginning of some great work from David Coverdale and the boys. Our fifth nominee, Whitesnake, with Slide It In. And the winner is? Always the bridesmaid, but never the bride no more. The Scorpions finally bring home Album of the Year with their tremendous album, Love at First Sting. Okay, I am tired of Rock You Like a Hurricane, but even I must admit, it's a really catchy tune. But this song has Big City Nights, Bad Boys Running Wild. We talked about all the other songs. Don't need to go through those again. The Scorpions absolutely knock it out of the park here. What a tremendous album. But let me tell you, Dokken and Whitesnake, boy, ooh, they gave them a run for their money. Very tough competition. Congratulations to the Scorpions. And now let's talk about the four nominees that are going to lose to Metallica's Ride the Lightning. It's kind of anticlimactic after going on and on about how much I love Ride the Lightning. But there are four other really excellent albums here as well. We start with Dio, the defending champions in this category, with their album Last in Line. Dio won this award in 1983 for the epic Holy Diver, and he comes back with another brilliant album here. Last in Line still features excellent guitarist Vivian Campbell. The title track on this song is very good. It closes with the epic Egypt, The Chains Are On. A lot of Egyptian music going on. More on that in a minute. But that must have been the theme in 1984. We're talking about pharaohs, and we're talking all sorts of people in this year. Interestingly enough, there's a song on here, Evil Eyes, that was supposed to go on Holy Diver, but didn't quite make the cut, so it ends up here. And you really think, wow, Evil Eyes could have been could have fit on either album. Really good song. And now, when you talk about favorite Dio deep tracks, here it is, I Speed at Night. I gotta be honest with you, I went and saw Dio in concert on this particular tour like 3 times. I was a little bit obsessed. And I was so disappointed because my favorite song on this album was I Speed at Night. And he did not perform that bad boy on this tour, and it just killed me. It was many years later, I believe it was on the Killing the Dragon tour, when he finally broke out I Speed at Night. I'm like, what took you so long? It's my favorite song. He finally got to it, but it was years before he played that song live. Just a little side note there. Our first nominee, Dio, Last in Line. Songs about Egypt, you say? Big stage sets with Egyptian themes, you say? Our second nominee, Iron Maiden, with their album, Power Slave. When you talk about the greatest tours of all time, Dio's Last in Line tour was about Egypt, great tour. But Iron Maiden said, hold my beer. I can't think of an Egyptian beer, so I'll just say beer. They put together an Egyptian set for their Power Slave tour that might be the greatest tour setup of all time. I really love when Iron Maiden plays the song Power Slave and Bruce Dickinson puts on that kind of feathery mask. Just an absolute barn burner of a song. This album from start to finish, many people, I think they're wrong about this, but many people would say this is the apex of Iron Maiden's powers. This is their greatest album. I tend to favor Number of the Beast, as many people know, but Power Slave is very good. Has one of the greatest epic songs of all time, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Everything great on this album. If you say this is their greatest album, I won't argue too hard. It is an absolutely sensational album. It is our second nominee here. Our third nominee, Defenders of the Faith by Judas Priest. I just got through talking about it last week, I believe. It has one of my all-time favorite Judas Priest songs, The Sentinel. This is kind of, many people call it like the twins of Screaming for Vengeance. They kind of put these albums out, very similar styles, even to the point of they both kind of had a hit song written by, I forget the guy's name, but he wrote a couple of songs for Judas Priest. You Got Another Thing Coming, which was a big hit. Also here, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, kind of very similar themes to this. Free Wheel Burning, what an absolute scorcher. Again, another great album by a great band, Judas Priest. And finally, Metal Church comes out with their self-titled album this year. This is the original Metal Church lineup. Great vocals, great riffs, great dark atmosphere on this song. What a sensational debut by Metal Church. They are really going to put out a couple of fantastic albums with this original lineup. Go check them out. They are I guess they're not our final nominee, because our final nominee, I don't know if they're going to win it or not, is Metallica's Ride the Lightning, one of the all-time greatest albums of all time. So without further ado, let's get to the winner's circle. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a shocker. 1984 Best Heavy Metal Album of the Year, Metallica with Ride the Lightning. Who saw that coming? Last in Line, Power Slave, and Defenders of the Faith, in particular, are three of the best albums by three of the most legendary bands on planet Earth. And they just didn't even come into consideration on this bad boy. Congratulations to Metallica. Honestly, when you put together an album this great, it needs to be celebrated, and we do so here. Now, the Grammys that year, their album of the year was Can't Slow Down by Lionel Richie. Now, I gotta say, I am a heavy metal dude through and through, but I also spent years with disco in my formidable years, and I have a soft spot for disco. And Lionel Richie was part of a band called the Commodores, who had one of those songs that was pretty catchy back in the day called Brick House. And he was a huge star for a couple of years here as a solo artist, but he's not my cup of tea. Lionel Richie, you're going to get the boot. The best album of the year has to be Metallica, Ride the Lightning. Lionel Richie, your 5 minutes of fame are up. Metallica was about to redefine heavy metal. They were about to become the biggest band on planet Earth. This is absolutely brilliant stuff. The songwriting, the stories in the songs, the tremendous musicianship of Kirk Hammett, Lars Ulrich, James Hetfield, and of course Cliff Burton. Unparalleled. There is no way, if you know anything about music, you could come to any other conclusion than Album of the Year in 1984, repeat after me, Grammys, Metallica, Ride the Freaking Lightning. And that's our show. We have finished 1984, everybody. 5 years of, again, my favorite era of heavy metal music, 1980 through 1984. I'll put that 5 years up against anybody's. What a great run, and what a way to finish it up with the mighty Metallica raising their game up. So we've got a couple of special things coming up in the next few weeks on the episode. We're going to take a little bit of a break, I think, from the 80s. There's some big albums coming out. There's some different things that I want to highlight before we continue on with the 80s. Might change the format just a little bit as we move into that next 5-year era, where I think we're going to move back to more of a one episode per year kind of cadence. So stick with us. Come back for more. Subscribe. Ring the bell so you will get alerted, and come check out our next weeks. We're going to have, like I said, some big albums coming out in 2025, some format changes on the band, and we're going to keep going through some great music in the mid to late 80s. You don't want to miss it. In the meantime, this is the Metal Dude signing off. Take care.